Welcome back to the Creating Distance podcast, hosted by TA Sales. I'm your host, Tom Alaimo. Some people call me Tommy Tahoe. And each week on Fridays, we'll be bringing you an episode to break down with salespeople and sales leaders the top tips, tactics, strategies, stories that you need to get to the next level of your career and up level yourself. So let's get into it. All right, next on the Creating Distance podcast, we have Revenue Enablement Leader at IBM, Deb Jenson, in the house. Happy Friday, Deb. How are you?
Happy Friday, Tom. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this podcast.
Yeah, likewise. And you've got the beautiful view behind you, the 1800s view there. So for folks that are watching on YouTube, and excited to have you in. You've got such a, great track record in the world, of enablement and sales, and even more on the technical side, of product marketing and things, sales engineering, earlier in your career. I'd love to just kick off with, I feel like people always get into sales in kind of a wander about way, and similar with enablement, it's not always a very straight line career path for how people get in there. So I'd love to hear from your technical background, how did you find the world of sales and then sales enablement?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think if you would have asked me many years back, you'll be in a sales enablement role, I probably wouldn't have, well, I wouldn't have even known what sales enablement is, first of all,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I probably wouldn't have believed it. But I always am seeking new and interesting opportunities. So I started my career technical. I was actually a developer, and uh, I
That's okay.
swear. So I
We'll cut
started
that out.
my, I'm moving my phone. Hold on. Out of the room. I swear I put it on Do Not Disturb too. So I started as a developer, and I had a software company come in and give me a demo. And I was polite. I didn't say anything, but the sales engineer took me to lunch, and it was just one-on-one. And I said, nobody would use your software like that in real life. And he was like, really? And I said, after lunch, why don't we come sit down at my desk and I'll show you how I use your software like every morning when I come in. And it was a database monitoring software. So one thing led to another, and that was when I guess stepped onto the deep side, right? And I started with a
Yeah.
software company in solution engineering, so demonstrating products to customers. I loved it. I loved being
Hmm.
with clients and showing them the technology, and I knew on their end the pains they were feeling, so it was very relatable. That quickly changed to I was always hounding the development team. You need to add this feature. We need to have this. This needs to integrate with, maybe another feature, another product. And that's how I moved to Chicago, actually. I lived in Minneapolis at the time to lead up a development team. That company got acquired, and I ended up going to somewhat of a startup. It was pre-IPO, and led a development line there. It was really fun. Actually, I've loved every job I've had, but they did not have product management and product marketing. They had development and they had sales. So then I realized, like, from a messaging and outbound, we really need product management to do the inbound product marketing. So establish that function at this startup. We IPO'd, it was great. And then from there, what I did was I took that product management experience and brought it up a level. I went to IBM and ran one of their product lines. And then lo and behold, I'm at IBM, and a Chicago entrepreneur that I worked with at one of the previous companies started up a new company. It was in the River North area. So
Hmm.
I ended up leaving IBM because I thought, hey, who doesn't love startups, right?
Yeah.
And I really, really respected the CEO. And I also knew the senior VP of sales. So it was like a perfect match. So I went there, and that was like mind blown because it was truly a startup. Brought in Salesforce, brought in Marketo, stepped into a world I really wasn't familiar with, which was digital marketing, digital sales. So
Mm.
hired a digital sales and inside sales, we called it, right? Because this is like, post 2010, pre 2020, and got that whole digital engine up and running with a complete focus of qualified leads. So bring in
Hmm.
the cold leads, warm them up, get them ready to pass on to a account executive who could take it further. I learned so much in that job. It was great. Um, so I'm there and I get tapped on the shoulder by somebody at IBM. Hey, you've got a lot of SaaS experience working for this company. How'd you like to come back and help us with doing enablement around SaaS products? So that was about 10 years ago. So came in, I was very focused on product enablement, how to sell SaaS products. And again, like one thing leads to another. At IBM, we have thousands of products. So we quickly
Hmm.
realized that sellers tend to creep back to the products they're most comfortable with and not always focus on the ones that, we're looking at to drive growth at IBM. So that led us to sales plays. So I took on that initiative to build sales plays for the field. And the team just grew. And now we've got sales program division, which is sales plays campaigns. We've got another team that's focused on upskilling from a sales perspective, not just product, but how do I have a compelling conversation? How do I lead with value? Uh,
Hmm.
that led to deal coaching. So that's a second team. And then, given how large our sales team is, which is about 20,000 sellers, one sales training program does not match all of these sellers. CSM is very different from a BDR. So now a team that's really focused on creating that customized buy role sales training. So that's where I am today. So from developer to solution engineer to product management to digital marketing to here I am today in revenue enablement. And I love it. I love every step of the journey.
Yeah, you've worn a lot of hats. You've seen a lot of different parts of different businesses, which is amazing. And it kind of blows my mind when you say, there's 20,000 plus sellers at IBM, and to think about, running the, revenue enablement and some of the different programs for that. My first response is like that sounds kind of overwhelming. So I would wonder like how at that size and scale, how do you prioritize where to put your time and effort, your team's time and effort, collaborating with, different cross-functional partners like sales leaders, and identifying like where, we do want to really spend time and energy, knowing how many product lines you have in different functions within sales versus BDR versus CSM, so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, first of all, as you can imagine, everything's about scale.
Yeah.
So, we have to think about what's that layer that's going to work across multiple roles, because we certainly can't do everything. And I would say the model that IBM has in place is a good one because we're at the global level. So global level kind of sets the foundation and puts the best practices in place. But then we have enablement people within each of the geographies. And so they're focused on number one, taking that foundational layer and activating it for their markets, their geographies and their
Hmm.
markets. And number two, if there's really certain specialization that needs to take place, they can do that at the geography level. But we rely heavily on well, of course, AI, like everybody else, to help quickly generate content in different modalities, whether that's podcast or microlearning or your old fashioned, give me a booklet or a PowerPoint, right? Um, we also rely heavily on digital means. Like everything can't be a workshop because a workshop hits 25 people.
Hmm.
So, maybe if there's a specialty group that's just being fired up and we want to get them going quickly, we'll do workshops. But most of the time, we rely on things that are repeatable, which tends to be your digital format. So
Hmm.
that's how we handle it. But it's definitely a challenge, and I'm sure there are people out there who have a wish list that we can't get to because we've got to almost aggregate up and try to hit really the big areas that IBM is focused on from a growth perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. You were telling me before we hit record about kind of like the way that you visualize enablement is like a layer cake. I'd love for you to, re-share that a little bit, and we can dive into that framework.
Yeah, so to me, there's kind of like foundational layers that are needed that you can rely on.
Hmm.
So for, at the lowest level to me, so the layer cake is definitely a methodology. And I'm not here to prescribe one over another, but you've got to have a common cookbook that your sellers can fall back on so that your new sellers have a guide that they can follow. Our methodology, we've actually blended a few together because we had our own methodology, but then we brought in and we work with corporate visions and we
Hmm.
use a lot of their principles, but it's almost like a matrix, our methodology. It's got both the what and the how. So the what
Hmm.
is your standard at this sales stage, you should do X, Y, and Z. And to progress, these are the things you should have accomplished. So,
Yeah.
so that's kind of one layer of it. But then the other layer is the skills that sit behind it, because maybe I don't know how to lead with value. I just got all this product training and I am ready to talk feature, feature, feature. And I don't know how to flip the script and talk about value. So it's kind of a matrix of the what and the how. And it's just great for people to fall back on. We keep it refreshed. So that's the bottom layer. But let's face it, how many people read a car manual? Right. And you could almost
Yeah.
kind of look at it like a bit of a car manual. So now we've got to sit on top of that with activation. So that activation comes in the form uh, of of skills. So again, we use a few vendors, but Corporate Visions is one of them that we leverage. So we've got the skills that can sit on top of it. So if I, as a seller, realize that maybe negotiation is not my strong spot, which is human nature. That's tough for a lot of people, right? I've got the skills I can dig into to learn how to build my muscle around negotiations. So you've got the methodology, then you've got the skills, uh, and then what you've got too is the coaching to sit with that. Um,
Hmm.
and that's really going to rely heavily on engagement data. So there's a number of platforms out there. It's a very, very crowded space right now that everyone's into, whether it's Gong or People.ai, even Salesforce with Einstein, collecting that
Yeah.
data and being able to do the analytics on that data to realize where, from an enablement and scale perspective, at an aggregate level, where am I seeing our sellers commonly struggle? So I'll go back
Yeah.
to negotiation. Let's say it's in negotiation. I can see it. We're not progressing past that stage. When we do the analytics on the engagement data, they're stumbling here. Okay, we know we probably need to roll out some wider scale program. For the managers, obviously, they can go look at this engagement data, get the same type of analytics for their team and their individuals, provide them coaching. Now, one of the big things I think everybody is doing right now is how about we embed that coaching right into the CRM so the seller themselves can see, okay, I see that I've got a gap. I haven't, maybe provided the right stakeholders. Maybe I
Hmm.
don't have a good competitive strategy. So this AI layer can help coach them in the moment. It does not eliminate the fact that first line managers need to coach their team, but it gives them a little bit of a cushion so they're not having to do it hour by hour, day by day. But maybe when they get with them, they can talk it through. But the AI can provide that kind of immediate fix.
Yeah.
So ultimately, what I'd like to see, what I'd like to get to, we're not there yet, is being able to take this data and build customized learning plans. So
Mm.
instead of saying, hey, it's Q4, guess what? Everyone's going to get training on negotiation because they're coming into year end and we want to make sure they've got this skill. There may be sellers who are great with negotiation, but maybe they're not great with competitive strategy. So I would really like to get to a point, and hopefully within the next year, where we can look at that engagement data, we can look at the coaching they've received, we can look at their sales stage, we can look at various signals to build them a personalized learning plan where Tom's learning plan looks very different than Deb's learning plan. So
Mm.
that's the vision.
Yeah. How do you think about for your team if visions like that, like what you build versus what you outsource or buy as part of like trying to achieve that goal?
That's a great question, actually. And we have a mixture of both. Um, and there's so many pros and cons to it, right? Because obviously, if you build it, like with our methodology, we built it in house because we knew our culture, we knew from best years and years of best practices, what we wanted in that methodology. On the flip side, the hard part about building, especially technology, is it's hard to keep up, right? You look at something like, I don't know, a Gong or
Hmm.
we just brought in Hyperbound for AI role play, right?
Yeah, we're
And
we're partners with them. I love those guys. I don't know if you met the founders there, but I
oh,
love those
yeah.
guys.
And
Yeah,
they'll be at the Enablement Summit in November,
yeah,
by the way.
yeah.
It's hard to keep up with them. So to me, if it's a fast moving space, I prefer to buy. Now, on the other hand, at IBM, we've got a great in house AI tool for tutoring on the technology.
Mm.
And what's really nice about it is it's very interactive. So, as opposed to going and taking a learning course and a quiz afterwards, it you can treat it like micro learning, learn the key spots. It's very interactive. I can ask questions, I can dig deeper into certain areas, I can come back for refreshers because it goes beyond micro learning. It's now like interactive. And not only that, but we can generate podcasts, short podcasts. Who doesn't love a
Hmm.
podcast, right?
Right. Yeah.
And we were just talking about riding the train before you hit the record button, since we both live in Chicago. I love podcasts. I listen to them all the time on the train. So if I've got a new product in my portfolio, right, I can put my earbuds in, kick back, listen to it on the train. So those different modalities, this tutoring product, which was built in house, that's a great example of you can kind of build it as you want it to be.
Hmm.
Um, but in some of these other areas, like the role play, like the revenue intelligence, you look at things like what Gong is putting out, it'd be pretty tough to keep up with some of those. And that's where I'd recommend probably buying is a better solution.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that from I actually used to work in Gong for a few years before this role, and I think one of the challenging things in the world of sales tech and working with enablement leaders is how much time and energy, as great as some of the tools are, how much to really get the most out of them, it does take someone, maybe that's not their full-time job managing Gong or managing Hyperbound or something like that, but it does take up a significant portion to make sure that you're getting the most out of it, that reps are using it, reps are getting value out of it, or leaders are, depending on what the tool's for. Any tips for an enablement leader that maybe is looking at their stack and thinking like, man, we got some shelfware on here that people like. I like the idea of this product, but people just aren't using it. Do you have any go-tos on that, or frameworks for making sure that the tech gets used and you get the most value out of it?
Yeah, actually I do. And I really liked how we're rolling out Hyperbound, actually. And that is, you've got to
Mm.
have skin in the game to be invited to the party. So, for example, our digital, our digital team, which is really our BDR team, we're very interested in this. They hire a lot of early professionals, some of them right out of college. And as you know, coming right out of college, a lot of these people they don't even want to order from a waiter
Yeah,
at a
yeah, yeah.
restaurant, much less get on a call with somebody they don't know, right? So they wanted in on the party with Hyperbound. Great. But guess what? You need to come up with a couple administrators that can help us make sure the personas are tuned right, make sure the scorecards are what you want them to be. So going forward, that's how I'm going to do it from now on. Because otherwise, I feel like if you manage it and roll it out within enablement, you don't get that buy-in. But if they're
Hmm.
part of it and they've got skin in the game, they see how it works under the covers. The onboarding team's another one with Hyperbound. They're all in. They're in there building their scorecards. They're in there, building the bots for themselves. So we will help do the evaluation. We'll drive that. We'll narrow it down to a few leaders, get some input from them, work through as you can imagine, the procurement process is a little painful at IBM. We'll work
I'm
that through
sure.
with you, but you gotta put skin in the game when it comes to the day-to-day operations of the tool. So that's what I would recommend for people is guaranteed they can always find somebody on their sales team who has a passion for this. And plus they're like a liaison too. They're closer to the people sitting on the floor. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of pluses to, getting people from that business unit, helping to administer the product.
So we're getting close to, end of the year and Q4 for most sales teams if they're on a calendar, fiscal or close to that. You're talking about some of the tech that you are using or have used and bought and worked through at a company like IBM. I always find it interesting, for, a lot of the work we do is with sellers and with those teams, and we don't always get the perspective of the buyers of, technology and different programs. So I'm just curious, anything that stands out to you as either a great sales experience that you really appreciate that they do throughout the process, or how they work with you in procurement, or a great cold call you've gotten, or anything, or maybe even on the flip side, if it's easier, any of the bad things that stand out or have recently stood out. We don't need to name names, but I'm always just curious what that experience is like, right now for buyers.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get sold to a lot,
Yeah.
because just being in the position I'm in, and I can tell you if somebody sends me a very personalized email and it hits the right points, in other words, they've done their research, they listened to we just had our earnings yesterday, right? They listened to our earnings and they come at me with a very personalized message about how they can help us move the needle. Even if it's not something we're in the market for right now, I'll actually respond to them and I'll say, "This was an awesome email. Like, you 100%, you did a great job. Unfortunately, right, at this moment, we're not looking for technology like this, but hit me up in February and let's have a conversation there." So I think that personalization, where they've taken the time to really understand where we are, makes a huge difference. I would say the other one is I love digital sales rooms and mutual action plans where,
Mm.
you know, we've got a digital sales room where they've parked whatever they've shared with us. So I'm not searching my email. I'm not trying to find old recordings because maybe I pull somebody new into the project and then I've got to be like, "Hey, Tom, could you send me those Zoom recordings from back in September so I can get Alice up to speed on our project?" So I
Hmm.
love digital sales rooms, number one for that. But then I really like it when they put a mutual action plan in there and we are
Hmm.
both in lockstep on here's where we're at, here's the next steps, from as a buyer, here's who I'm going to bring in. And I'm sure if, as a seller, let's say you were the seller, Tom, that would make you feel comfortable too, that I'm bringing in the right stakeholders as we move along the sales process. So
Yeah.
for me, I absolutely love it when things come together like that and we're aligned, we're on the same page, and I'm not getting "Hey, I thought we were close to contract." Right? It's like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. We're way far off. It's interesting you bring up sales rooms and mutual action plans, because I think they both fall in the camp of great ideas, and the intent behind them. I think oftentimes is, yeah, how do you get the seller and the buyer on the same page, working like, mutually working towards something. And I think oftentimes that misses the mark. I think oftentimes it can feel a little self-serving from the sales rep of, they're basically just trying to put together a timeline of when they're gonna close someone, or they want to just put everything in a room so that they can see when you click into different things or your boss clicks into different things. So I don't know if you've ever felt like that or if that's ever crossed your mind, but if so, I would be curious if you have any examples of or thoughts around how people actually do make it feel mutual for you and them, and that like actually helps you buy and gets you excited about the process and like trying to move this further down the line.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it's all in how it's positioned because I think you're
Yeah.
right. Like we use seismic digital sales rooms
Hmm.
and mixed success from our now from the seller
Hmm.
standpoint as opposed to I was talking from a buyer earlier. And I think it's for those exact reasons you're talking about is people feel like, "Oh, you're just tracking me and tracking my clicks and if I share it, you're going to start bugging that person." So, I think it needs to be positioned right up front, and that's where I've found if now coming back as a buyer, if Tom were to come to me and by the way, before we put a mutual action plan together, we have both had to have agreed. In other words, it's qualified. We both agreed to proceed forward. So you don't want to be immature with a mutual action plan and assume, because that would be a huge turnoff. So to
Hmm.
me, at first, the digital sales room is nice if it's positioned as, hey, rather than searching your email and looking for assets that you might want to share with your coworkers or your uplines, let me just give you this dumping ground. We'll put things in there and we can remove them as we go along. But just consider this your one stop shop. I think if it's positioned like that, I think people will welcome it. They still might be suspicious. So you kind of got to read the room a little bit.
Yeah.
Get it? Read the room.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Nice.
and then the other thing with the mutual action plan, again, you got to be past that qualification stage where you and I both agree it's a problem we're solving and we want to proceed forward. So that it doesn't look like, hey, I'm trying to push you and I'm trying to push dates. And the dates should be mutually agreeable because I might say, Tom, your solution looks great, but guess what? I won't have budget until Q1. So either we can pick up in Q1 or we can take the slow track through Q4. You can start introducing me, making me comfortable with your solution, but just know I'm not even going to be ready for a POC until after sales kickoff, right? In
Yeah.
February. So I think it's all in just like everything else, right? It's all in the messaging and positioning.
Yeah, totally. I appreciate the yeah, feedback and just thought process on that. And the last kind of like bigger topic that I wanted to get into that we talked about pre-recording was just around the art or the path of mentorship and enablement. And I think the world of enablement has changed. I'd be curious to your perspective. In my perspective, it's changed a lot just in the, 11 years that I've been, in sales and now doing, work in the enablement and training world. And I think how what enablement does, how they're viewed internally in the sales org, what makes a great enablement person or a great enablement team, and all the different things that they're responsible for. And so I think it can feel like a little bit less of a straight path than if you're a sales professional, where it's like, okay, I know BDR to AE to start closing bigger deals or get into sales leadership. It's pretty straightforward, and it doesn't feel quite the same way for folks in enablement. Maybe that's starting to get a little bit more carved out. So I would just be curious when you're mentoring people, common questions that come up, common things people are coming to you about, your advice to them. What are people in the earlier stages of enablement, wondering about or stressing about, and how do you help them out?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and you're right, enablement is changing a lot, but I think there's some fundamental elements that will always be important. And, one of the big things that as we bring new enablement people in is have a squad, right? You're almost like the fulcrum between sales, product marketing, product management, and depending on the solutions you sell, even tech sales. So you want to work with a squad now, not daily, right? But almost like account planning, like first set up like strategy session. What is it that we're trying to do? What's the outcome we're all looking to achieve? What's the core messaging around this? Whether it's pure product enablement or sales play where you're combining maybe multiple products together, campaigns, right? And identify who that squad is and make sure you've got representation and that they're contributing.
Mm.
So you almost build that account plan up front with that squad and then assign out the pieces, right? Typically, at least at IBM, product marketing builds a lot of assets for sellers to use. So now that we've agreed on the messaging, now that we've agreed on the outcome, product marketing, here's what, we're looking for from you. Product management, maybe we need to do some deeper product enablement as part of this plan. So let's lean on you to do that. Sales, how are you selling? What's working? What's not working? What messages are we seeing that are resonating out in the field so that we make sure that, we tune everything to align with where we've seen success. And then you have checkpoints along the way as you're building this out and looking to release it, where everybody in the squad, I shouldn't say everybody, because sometimes there's people who maybe aren't 100%, but you've got to at least get everybody to where they're over 50% saying, yes, I agree, it's the right approach. So to me, that squad model is key no matter what. The other thing I really think that the enablement person has to do is they've got to carefully negotiate with everybody. Because, like I
Mm.
said, there are times where sales and product are on two polar ends. So how do we make it so people are good enough? And we're listening to everybody's input, but we've got to have a dose of reality as well. And sometimes product can be a little over enthusiastic, which I love. That's their job. They should love what they're building and think it's the best thing. And sellers are a little more dose of reality. This is how customers are viewing it. So being able to take that collective input, and when I say negotiating, making everybody feel good at the end of the day. Like everybody needs to walk away with a win, and then you've got buy-in across. So having those negotiation skills, not being afraid to reach out and saying, hey, Tom, I noticed in the meeting you weren't contributing a lot. Is there something that, bothered you or something you feel needs tuning? So you've got to have an outgoing personality as well. So those are just kind of the fundamental elements to me of enablement. But in terms of your point that you made when you asked the question, what it's changed a lot. It used to be very black and white, right? We taught people, basic selling skills and at least at tech companies, product, product, product. If you know the
Yeah.
product, you should be able to sell it, right? That has completely changed now. And really what we're seeing now, and I think AI is doing a lot of this as well, helping to kind of push this along, is, clients can find out about the products, right? They can
Yeah.
go to our websites, they can watch demos, they can go to sites like G2, right, and start doing comparison between them. And now more emphasis is on how the seller manages that relationship, and how they build trust into the process and integrity into the process. So we're seeing more around upskilling on that sales side, and obviously content is being driven much more by AI, right? Rather than having these very large content libraries, hey, just let me get into Copilot or Chat GPT or Gemini and start asking questions. And now I can get what I need that's tailored for my situation. And we don't have enablement teams that are trying to maintain libraries of content, right? It's always up to date because it's always grabbing the latest information.
Yep.
So, um, so huge changes there. And then these revenue intelligence platforms. I mean, that is what's hot, hot, hot right now, right?
Yeah.
Look at my pipeline, look at what I've forecasted, right? Tell me what I'm missing, with all the phone calls and all the whatever you're using, Zoom, Teams, what am I missing? Right. And it can go through all that engagement data and come back and tell you, hey, I noticed when Tom was on the call, he kind of frowned when you brought something up about a particular feature. You should circle back on that. Hey,
Mm.
you don't have an executive stakeholder, right? You need to go back and make sure that you connect with and then give me who that right person is. So that's really where the future is. And that's why I said earlier, it's such a hot space, so many vendors in there. Who's going to come out on top? I don't know. We'll probably know in a year or two, right?
Yeah, yeah, maybe even longer. Yeah, I
Maybe
think
even
that those
longer.
are yeah, those are all great points, and yeah, things are changing rapidly, and you got to stay on the ball, and that's why I love to have these conversations and just hear what are people thinking about, what are they trying, what's working, what's not. Um, Deb, I'm going to hit you with a couple, uh, kind of like speed round here, fast answer questions to close us out, and then we'll be on our way for the rest of Friday. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, cool. So first question, uh, first answer that comes to your mind, cold email or cold call?
Cold call.
The best, your favorite piece of software that's in your sales tech stack right now, or revenue tech stack?
We don't have Gong yet, but I'd say Gong if we had it.
Okay. Uh, what is um, what is one thing that you do outside of work to, kind of recharge and rebalance yourself?
Do you see these plants behind you?
I do.
I grow orchids and I'm a huge gardener.
Love it. Love it. What you mentioned podcasts earlier. Any of your favorite podcasts or books related to anything, work or I guess not work related? Anything that you're like really into right now?
Yeah, there's actually a revenue enablement podcast that I find really interesting, and it talks about a lot of the tech tools that are out there. Um, some of the other podcasts I listen to are, kind of my like your People magazine. I do a lot of like
Yeah,
cold
yeah.
cold crime cases I find really
Okay.
interesting. So when I'm like burned out and done with work, I listen to that. So, Ruby Frankie, and anything you need to know about a crime,
Yeah.
I'm your gal.
Yeah. My wife is the same way. We've got a quick side tangent. We've got a road trip to Florida for Thanksgiving. We're driving because we're bringing our dog, and that'll be probably 16 hours of true crime podcasts, which that's just music to her ears. So I love it. And my last one for you is, who is one person that you would love to see come on this podcast next that would have something great to share?
Oh, that's a really good question. The company, and I don't have a specific name because I've seen a few of them speak at Gartner and different conferences. I feel like Cisco is really doing a nice job with their revenue enablement. I
Mm,
learn something new every time I listen to them. So I would say go hit up Cisco. I think they're definitely leading the charge on a number of initiatives in this area.
interesting. Okay, cool. We will hit them up. Deb, really appreciate the time today, the fellow Chicago connection. If any of our listeners are going to the Sales Enablement Summit that's in the mid to end of November in Chicago, Deb will be speaking at that. So our
Yep.
team's looking forward to getting in there and hearing what you have to share. Any last words or places people can connect with you or anything else that you want to share as kind of parting words?
Well, I am on LinkedIn, so feel free. And by the way, you reminded me I need to promote the enablement summit. But I think it would be, the way I've run my career, don't be afraid to take on new opportunities. You think you
Mm.
might not be qualified. Well, you know what? So is probably everybody else, right? So get in there, don't be fearful, and always be learning. Like always, always be learning. Take advantage of podcasts like this to continue learning new things.
We have a saying around here that we like to be learning machines. So
Hmm.
you're in good company with that. I love it. Deb, thanks for coming on. Definitely, we will put your LinkedIn in the show notes here. If people want to connect with you and share their top takeaway. And for all the listeners, we'll be back next week with another episode.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for checking out that episode. Two quick things as a takeaway. Number one, we would feel honored if you left a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, if it's on Spotify or Apple or YouTube, to just let us know how we're doing, what else you'd like to see. If you'd like to learn more about us, you can check us out at tasales.co. Love to hear from you there. Much love. Have a great week.